Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone from this platform. We are on the 1- century. We are on 99th session. It's on 26th of February. We are meeting with all the national medical associations. Today we are talking from the national medical associations, as we see the pandemic is getting over, that's what we hear. There are new policies, norms which are being implemented in a lot of regions. Lockdown situation, a lot of places are opening up, schools are opening up. So it's back to school. Offline classes are getting over. Mask, a lot of countries have removed restrictions, especially UK and a lot of other places, but a lot of countries are still asking members to wear the mask. Mask is something which I don't think is anymore mandatory for COVID, but it also protects other diseases. It helps you to breathe with a filter air, especially a country like, where there is a lot of pollution. So it helps you. So with this note, we will start the session. We will open the forum. We will invite all the medical associations to talk and update, because we have not been getting an update from them because we have speakers over a period of time. So today we'll get this update. So can we start with South Africa? Dr. Angelique, Dr. Akhtar, and Dr. Muskwa.
Okay.
Good morning, colleagues. I welcome you officially as the first meeting, and just to introduce, you are the Vice Chair for South Africa Medical Association. Welcome to you on the board.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm actually the chair of the South African Medical Association.
Oh, okay.
Yes. First, let me recognize and thank Dr. Angelique Kutsie and Dr. Akhtar for occupying this platform without fail, and also the hard work that both of them have been shouldering. I really thank them for being passionate around the issues of COVID-19 and also the work that they've done. In South Africa, there are few issues. I will allow Akhtar to talk about the issue of statistics and stuff. But in South Africa, we are really at the adjusted level 1. There are lots of easing of restrictions in the country, including the numbers, for the gatherings outside and gatherings inside in closed spaces. So there's lots of easing of restrictions, but the mask is still mandatory to put the mask on. Schools have been reopened fully. Usually they were doing staggering the opening of schools, but this time around all of them, everybody is at school. Also we noted that the number of vaccinated people is going up. It's just that the uptake is not as much as it was anticipated, but we're still having lots of people coming up and also taking a booster shot. But the other interesting thing in South Africa is that we've been always using the homologous booster. But recently there was an announcement by the Department of Health nationally that they are now going to allow heterologous booster doses. So at the moment, that's where we are in terms of our vaccinations. And there are there's no country that is restricted to come to South Africa. And we see everything sort of coming back to some normality. I don't want to say back to normal, but there's some normality that is starting to be clear. Maybe at this point, let me allow Dr. Akhtar to say something, and then if there's any additions, Dr. Angelique can still come in and add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, listener and the friends. And sorry, Saurabh, I have to wake you up 2 o'clock in the morning, New Delhi time, because I didn't have the Zoom connection and the password. So lucky you are dreaming that time, thinking it is Thursday. I was in Friday. Thank you. South Africa, the new cases last 24 hours, 2,111. And the last 7 days, our average between 1,500 to 3,000. But some provinces are less than 100. Some of the other provinces 300. So these numbers are going down rapidly. Our total death since COVID started, 99,145. But if we look at last 24 hours or 48 hours, we had 127 deaths in past 24 hours. We have total cases so far in South Africa, 3.6 million. At the moment, we have 34,000 active cases. The week between 13th of February to 19th February, the positive rate is 10.2, but last 2 days is around 8.1%. So 3,028 patients were admitted around the country of 666 hospitals, that is public health sector and private hospitals. So out of that, 278 in ICU admission and 99 were ventilated. And again, those who are fully vaccinated, very few with the comorbidity admitted in a public or private hospital. Otherwise, they have been discharged. The hospital stay duration was between 1.5 to 2 days. And some of them have a longer period, those have a chronic complication. Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you so much. Dr. Angelique, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would like to say that my clinical experience, I think that first of all, Omicron is being missed by the majority of maybe family practitioners because of the type of symptoms. Actually, each and every patient coming in with any respiratory tract.
I think you're muted.
Thanks. Sorry for this. In my clinical experience, what I'm seeing is that I think Omicron is severely being missed by the majority of family practitioners out there because, again, of the mildness of symptoms. And that's the one thing. The second thing is each and every patient coming in with any upper respiratory tract infection or complaints should be tested. Third thing is what I've noticed, that if you have been tested or previous COVID or been vaccinated more than 4 months ago, you should also be tested because the breakthrough infections are quite prevalent. And yeah, so and there's definitely the B2 would give you where we see with the normal Omicron variant, mild, clinically very few symptoms. With the B2, what I have noticed is tachycardia, and they will also complain of tiredness, but there's definitely tachycardia, and it's got a nice tachycardia. It's around about 120. So I have seen quite a few of those patients now. So it is very important to clinically look at your patients. And as I've said, there's definitely a difference, but the outcomes are both the same. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. That was an update from South Africa. I welcome Dr. Chong, the chair of CMAAO, to join the seat with me to run this session. Can I have an update from Dr. Pillai from India? A lot of
Thank
changes
you.
are happening in India,
Yeah.
so I think it's a
Yeah.
good update which will be required, right?
Thank you. Now, COVID is not a news at all. None of the newspapers are reporting on COVID situation. So to that extent, easing out of the infection probably is happening. Whatever information you get is from other sources. But definitely it has come down. But a vast country like India, the number still is around 11,000 or 13,000 per day. Is happening, particularly in certain states which has been chronically having more number of cases. But majority of the northern states, the number is negligible. And to that extent, there is easing out of restrictions, and life is more or less becoming normal in all of the states. International travel, there is no restriction now, no quarantine. Once they arrive in our country, there is no quarantine. Previously, 1 week of quarantine and 1 week of isolation sort of thing was there, but now no quarantine is there. The RT-PCR testing, some of the countries insist, but on reaching here, only if symptoms are there, testing is done. Otherwise no testing is done. And schools are opening up. Delhi by 28th of March, all the schools are opening up. In other states, it has already opened up. And the restriction in the number of students and the increase in the shift is easing out, and normal intake of students are now is happening, and online classes are getting restricted very much, and mostly it is offline classes. Restaurants restrictions are less. Any number of people can go to the restaurant. Cinema houses slowly opening up with some restriction in the number who can attend. Bars, again, minimal restrictions are there. So much so, travel is interstate travel is now allowed, and some of the states, including my state, they say those patients who are getting admitted, unless there are symptoms, there's no need for RT-PCR test or antigen test. But then most of the hospitals still do practice this, because hospitals should not become an area for spreading of the infection. So at least those who we take up for surgery, IC units and all, RT-PCR or antigen test is done and they are taken up. So that monitoring is being done by the hospitals, particularly bigger hospitals. So that is where we stand. Regarding vaccination, we have already vaccinated 173 crores of people. Our population is 130 crores. So 176 doses of vaccine has been administered. Almost the eligible population at least had received one dose, and most of them have received 2 doses. And booster dose now is being given to people over 65 years with those who have comorbidities and immunosuppressants and that category of people. And from age of 15 to 18, again, vaccination is being given to the adolescent population. And still the vaccine with Covishield and Covaxin, AstraZeneca and Covaxin, these are the 2 vaccines still very popular. Although many other vaccines are in the process of making, and even the import restrictions are not there for other vaccines, but still these are the 2 vaccines which are almost preferably given to the population. The booster dose definitely is the same vaccine. There is no mixing or matching of vaccine that is happening. So things are easing out. But then if the test positivity rate is about 1%, then many of the states are contemplating on reducing immediate restrictions. Hopefully, it may not happen. And COVID appropriate behavior emphasis is still being given, mask wearing, hand sanitation, and physical distancing. Those norms are still being advised to the citizens, and some of the states it is being followed, some of the states they don't bother to have these COVID restrictions. So that is where India stands, and hopefully the nation is inching back to normalcy.
So I think it's a big relief for the students, at least. They're very happy to go back to the school. The COVID has really changed the mindset of the students who never used to go to school and would like to stay home. Now they want to run out of the houses. They're fed up with the parents, I would say. So, so let's move on. That was an India update. Thank you, Dr. Pillai. Can we have an update from Australia, Dr. Russell D'Souza?
Well, Australia is opening up. Yesterday was for Victoria. 1 week ago, New South Wales brought it. All masks and all have been removed. They can only, it's only mandatory in, I think, in hospitals, in old age homes, in the primary school, because they haven't yet had the full immunization there. We continue to have cases, some deaths every day, pretty much from the geriatric population, or at least from the old aged care homes. But overall, the hospitals have, there's no link to the hospital admissions. So hospitals have also opened up, and there's removed all restrictions on elective surgery. So everything is pretty much coming back. And I think they are also taking off the need to be work from home. So in the next few weeks or months, they were looking at people returning to the workplace. So all this is what is happening here. Western Australia is about to open, as you know. They've been like another country, locked but they have now suddenly had a surge, and in the something like a couple of thousand. I think yesterday they had 1,000 odd cases in one day, and so they are now going to open, I think, on the 4th or 5th, but they've already got this Omicron come there, whereas the rest of the country is sort of settling down, and everything is deemed to be coming back. As you know, last Monday Australia opened their borders, so we've had now, I think Singapore were the first to come in. First flight was from Dr. Chalmers, and they brought, so I think they've stopped. There's no, if you have vaccination, you don't need PCR and all that at the moment. Although each state has got where you land will depend. Some states are different, but that's what's happening at the moment. In terms of Australia, everything seems to be, I think today was in Victoria had about 6,000 positive cases, and so, but no one, it doesn't seem to be impacting on hospital admissions. And the immunization has been good. I think we reached 95% nearly with 2 doses, and Victoria is over 50 for the 3 doses. And so the other, we are still in the process for the 5 to 11-year-old. They've all had their first dose. So that's why masks are being asked to be worn for primary school. And the secondary school also, they removed the masks. And no more, according to what we are doing now, is no closing of schools. We managed, I think, even if there was, they're using 2 rat tests. Every student has to do twice a week. The government gives them, the department gives them the tests. They got to do it. I see my grandchildren having to do the rat test on certain days, and that's with their phone. It directly goes to the health, to the education department. And if there was something, they don't close anymore. they might that child might not come for 4 to 5 days, and otherwise that's the way it's happening here. So till the next variant comes, I presume we'll have to ask Monica when the new variant comes, what's going to happen. Thank you for listening to that.
Thank you. Can I please invite Dr. Benito from Philippines Medical Association? Dr. Benito, are you there? Okay. Till the time he joins, can I have an update from Dr. Marie from Japan? Dr. Marie?
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. In Japan, now we see the decreasing of the wave of the sixth wave caused by the Omicron. But unfortunately, there is another wave, seventh wave in Okinawa Prefecture, Kazan Island. Maybe it caused by the BA2. So we are looking very closely about the movement of their number of the people who get positive for the Omicron too. Thank you very much.
Oh, you too.
Thank you, Dr. Marie. Can I have an update from Pakistan?
Hello.
Yeah. Dr. Sajad, Dr. Wazi.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, Dr. Qasser, are you there?
Yes, Dr. Qasser. Yes, President-elect, go ahead, please. You just.
It's really good to see the things are easing up around the world, and situation in Pakistan seems pretty good, and we have all the SOPs. We are trying to follow that, but things are easing up, and schools are open, markets are open, traveling is allowed, international traveling is as usual going on very well. We have a very reduced number of deaths. In the last 24 hours, only 14 deaths reported. And the positivity rate has come down to less than 3%. Our first dose vaccination program covered 125 million people, and 96 million are fully vaccinated, whereas booster doses, about 4 million people got their boosters as well. And the new cases are about 1,200. And our critical care, there's not a lot of pressure on the hospital. I mean, it's eased out. About 1,100 critical cases are there. In the last 24 hours, no new critical care has been added. And things are going pretty fine. And because of the eased out situation, the reduced number of, although we are educating for the wearing of mask and social distancing, but we see a very low number of people wearing masks. But still, things are pretty good. And the places are carrying on. We hope that the life begins to normal as other countries. Thank you very much.
Okay, Saurabh, I just want to add Dr. Qazi has already explained everything. But I just want to share to our worthy participant, because it's very important that even here in Pakistan, nobody is following. I can say the majority of people are not following. Sometimes I go into the gathering, marriage ceremony, and everywhere, people are shake handing and hugging each other, and nobody is following. Nobody is wearing masks in these type of gathering. So even then, the number of cases is going down, and everything in Pakistan is look like absolutely normal. Even we have a cricket season nowadays. PSL is going on with the 100% spectators. It's very good. But my fear is that, God forbid, there should not be the another wave. So I hope for whole of the world that this pandemic should be eliminated as early as possible, so that we can have this type of meeting with person. I want to see Dr. Chong, Dr. Ravi, Dr. Russell. Everybody should be in my near and very close. So we pray for everyone. Number one. And lastly, I would like to know, if the Alvin is here, why the Hong Kong is very, I heard that the hospitals, a number of beds are overflow, and there is no bed for the admission. Why it is so? If Alvin is there, I'm worried to know about this situation, how it is happened in Hong Kong. Thank you very much.
I think Elvin is not here, but he might join shortly. He usually joins in the second half.
Okay.
I will also message him. Meanwhile, Dr. Chong, would you like to take the forward, like the next update?
Thank you, Saurabh. And hi, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm on leave today, so just joined you guys a little late. I would like to share screen, just show you our latest figures in Singapore.
Sure.
Thank you. So you can see from our figures here in Singapore, this is our dashboard. Actually, the last 1 week, we're averaging somewhere in the region of 20,000 cases a day, 13 to 25,000, average about 20,000 a day. And this is, mind you, this is for just a population of 5 million people. So it's really a big Omicron wave. And you can see that in the last 1 month, 335,000 have been infected versus a total cases of 680,000. That means in the last month, we nearly had half of the cases for the last 2 years. And the hospitalization is 1,005, 200 need oxygen, 46 in ICU. And our total deaths to date for the last 2 years is about 1,000 cases. This is despite having a vaccination rate of 92%, 94% of the population, and boosted 67%. So despite all this, we're having a very, very big wave here in Singapore, and rightly so. Like in Hong Kong, we find that the number of hospital beds is a little bit tight at the moment. For example, yes, we're trying to find a bed for one of my patients today. Almost impossible in the private sector, and the public sector is really overflowing. We have an MRI and CT suite in our premise, so we've been asked by the public sector to help out for MRIs and CTs because they're just overwhelmed. So yes, there is some degree of a strain on our system, and that's why our task force here in Singapore that decides on the public health measures have decided not to lift anything at the moment. I think the example comes from Denmark recently, where they lifted everything, and they're seeing a huge rise in hospitalization, ICU beds, ICU admissions, and deaths. So I think at the moment we're still in a holding pattern for our public health measures. That's what we have to say from Singapore. Thank you.
I read one news where it says most of the Singaporeans are now, wishing that they will get COVID. They need to get COVID. They're trying to come up and say they need COVID. I think there is some wave also for that. Do you have a comments on that? That was a very, yeah.
Well, it's honestly among the young people, it's all over the shop. So I'm not sure it's by choice or well, they're not having COVID parties, but I'm sure
Yeah,
they're
the
just
COVID
going.
song also they built up. Get COVID.
You see, we are confined to 5 persons whenever we go out, right? To restaurants and so on. So I think life just goes on as per normal for these people. They're just confined to 5 person, but life just goes on. I mean, the restaurants are full, the bars are packed.
So there's no fear anymore. Like, even the hospital beds are not available and all that.
Yeah, everybody's boosted. Everybody's boosted. I mean, 67% of the population have received their boosters. So, it's kind of like live with it, and as far as we're concerned, the other thing we have in Singapore is that we have distributed ART kits to every household in Singapore. So every household in Singapore has their supply of ART kits from the government. So it's become, oh, you've got your ART positive, just stay home, do it yourself every day until 3 days later. If you're clear, you can leave. If you're vaccinated, if not, even at 7 days, if you are not clear, you can still, you're considered to be all right. So everybody's become taking it in their stride, telling all my patients, if there are minor symptoms, just stay at home. If there are major symptoms like vomiting, chest pain, breathlessness, your pulse oximeter drops below. The other thing we all have in our households is a pulse oximeter each, distributed again by the government. So I think that sort of having those things at home kind of help a little bit for people to feel that it's become new normal, if you know what I mean. So that may help to ameliorate the situation somewhat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have Philippines Medical Association back here? Dr. Benito, are you there? If not, then I will invite Dr. Monica Vasudev. She has some few slides to present to us. And before she starts, I would like to invite everyone for the next session, same day, same time. We are crossing 100th. It's a century for CMAAO. First time, I think, a dream come true for someone. So we are doing a special session and a special topic, and Dr. Monica will take that session entirely. So I would request 100% attendance. Whoever doesn't come that session would be presenting all the few sessions after post that.
Carrot and stick.
Carrot and stick. Well, thank you, Saurabh, and thank you, Dr. Chong. So yeah, getting ready for next week. If you have any comments about what you'd like me to include in the conversations, you can definitely message me personally. Okay, I just have a few slides just to kind of give like what's been our week in review, or kind of just a few days. Just sharing the current burden of COVID to date in the US, and very, very sad numbers of deaths. If you can see, it's 972,000 deaths with over 80 million cases. In terms of what's a breakdown of we're seeing in the last 30 days, we're seeing a dramatic decline in the number of cases. We're seeing a decline in the number of deaths. And we can see that 80% with those 5 and older have received at least 1 dose of a vaccine. What is the caseload across the country? The darker the red burgundy, the more cases you have, 50 per 100,000. And the lighter the peach to pink colors is what you are less. So I'm in the state of Wisconsin, and you can see that we have a lower caseload around the 10 to 24 per 100,000. This is the other Google depiction of how many cases we've seen on a day-to-day basis. New cases, we've got about 73,000 with the 7-day average of around 74,000. And you can see how dramatically the spike has gone up and it's come down, reflecting the Omicron surge that we have recently experienced. Looking at booster doses, there's a lot of data about the efficacy of booster doses preventing hospitalization and severe disease. This is breaking it up against demographics. Those who've received a booster dose once eligible is in teal, and those who have not received the booster dose in this yellowish color on the right, according to demographics identified. And this is reflecting data from 173 million ages 12 and older who are eligible for a booster dose. You can see that the highest percentage is in the Asian population who has received the booster dose. Big news, it's kind of occurring across the world right now in terms of kind of descaling some of the efforts for social distancing or masking, and masking has been a big news this week. Today, the CDC announced new guidelines allowing unmasking indoors. Under the old guidelines, masks were recommended for people living in communities with high transmission rates. But now, in addition to COVID-19 caseloads, the new guidance considers hospitalizations. They look at current bed occupied by COVID-19 patients and overall hospital capacity to create an assessment of what the risk of transmission is in an area or the risk in that area. The immunocompromised or those living with people at a high risk of severe disease will continue to take precautions. The new mandate allows people to go without masks in indoor spaces to include restaurants, bars, shopping centers, salons, movie theaters, concert halls, offices, government buildings, churches, and schools. And the mask mandate that applies for public transportation, such as planes, airports, and trains, will remain in effect until Friday, March the 18th. Some of the other news related to traveling, you all heard about the Freedom Convoy that had occurred in Toronto and Ottawa, at the borders, the land border crossings in Canada and the US, that has finally been dissipated. This has really brought to attention the need for what exactly is needed. Before, to enter Canada, you needed a PCR test exactly 72 hours within the time of your flight or mode of transportation into Canada or land border crossing. As of February 28th, you do not need a PCR test, and you can do a rapid antigen test that is done in 1 calendar day before the day of travel. So now there's a new call to say that we should end all COVID testing at land crossings. What are some other updates that we've seen regarding the myocarditis and vaccination? So this is a preprint that was found this week, where they said that people younger than 40 years and males were at elevated risk for myocarditis or pericarditis in the first 7 days after vaccination with mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccines, and the risk was especially elevated after the second dose. The name of the study is Post-Marketing Active Surveillance of Myocarditis and Pericarditis following vaccination with COVID-19 vaccines in persons aged 12 to 39 in Italy. What else have we seen in the news? It says that if you had Omicron, you're less likely to catch its rising variant, the BA2 subvariant, as does vaccination. What else came out in the news was news regarding the protection of maternal vaccination with mRNA COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy and associated hospitalization rates of these infants over in less than age 6 months over the time span of July of 2021 until January of 2022, which involved 17 different states. This was published in the MMWR report, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report this week. And what it said was that it looked at hospitalization trends across 20 different children's hospitals. In that time frame, they found that babies born to pregnant women who had received 2 doses of an mRNA vaccine were 61% less likely than those born to unvaccinated moms to be hospitalized with a COVID-19 infection. And effectiveness was lower if a woman was vaccinated early in pregnancy during the first 20 weeks, with protection at 72% versus 80% in later in pregnancy. So building a case towards getting 2 doses of the mRNA vaccine after 20 weeks of gestation. And that's it. That's all I have for an update for this week.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. So I will still invite Dr. Benito if he's there for a Philippines update. I don't think he's able to unmute himself. Dr. Benito, are you there? Okay. Yeah, he's there. Dr. Benito, can you unmute and speak from the Philippines side?
Yes, good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the Philippine Medical Association, thank you again for this meeting. As of now, we have about less than 1,000 to 1,500 daily cases of new cases of COVID-19, with a total of 3.5 million of positive cases. And now we see lesser admissions in our hospitals, and the national government is now studying if we can have the from alert 2 to alert 1. Alert 2 is allowed number of persons inside is 50%, outside 70%, while alert level 1 will be having 75% can attend inside indoors activities, while outside no limit. And we're studying that the classes will soon be can be started upon lifting the on alert 1. And as of now, we on the rolling out of vaccines for our 5 to 11 years old. However, we still have senior citizens of remaining 2 million unvaccinated, and about 200,000 of people with persons with comorbidity not yet vaccinated. Overall, we have about more than 70 million persons vaccinated, completely vaccinated, and the population of the Philippines is 110 million, and we have to vaccinate about more than 40 million, including the children. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Benito from Philippines. Dr. Chong, can we open the forum for if anybody has question answers? Otherwise, I think we will wind up the session early today. First time, I think we will wind up within an hour. Anybody has questions? Anybody has to ask questions to each other?
Yes, Saurabh, can I just need some information from Dr. Monica?
Sure.
First wave and second wave, is it real that the maternal death, pregnant mother, was very high, or it was just the normal death with COVID-19?
You're asking about maternal mortality during the first and second wave of the.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can try to find out the answer for you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, till Dr. Bhuvanika Vasudev does her homework. We will, Dr. Chong, would you, so Dr. Chong, interestingly, I would like you to speak a little further till the time we do it. Like, what is the cause for Hong Kong and Singapore still at this stage where all other countries are, settling down? In fact, I think there is really no COVID in India. Even the mask restrictions for the cars have been removed. And now if you see somebody not wearing masks, they're not even being questioned now.
It's a very good question, actually. I was asked by a lot of my foreign patients about this. And I think the reason is because of our experience with SARS in 2003, Singapore and Hong Kong were very well prepared for COVID in many ways. We had a playbook that we can pull out from SARS, and we knew exactly what to do. So we were very organized, and we got everybody, we got everything sorted out, and we kind of staved off the first year because we didn't have vaccines. So we used public health measures aggressively, and we managed to, curtail the spread of the virus. Then the vaccines came in January. In Singapore, we got the vaccine we got Pfizer in January 2021. I think we were one of the earliest in Asia to get it. And as a result, massive rollout of vaccines, and at a point in time, I think it was still pretty much the ancestral strain, and maybe, the Delta had, and some of the other earlier variants, and Delta had not reached us yet. So we did very well, and we covered a huge chunk of the population by middle of the year. By June, July, we had covered a massive number of the population, and everybody was just recently vaccinated. So, immunity was high and so on. So now with the subsequent variants, the Delta came in, the Omicron came in, and as the first wave of vaccines are wearing out, and because our herd immunity, we did too good a job in the first year, if you know what I mean. So as a result, the herd immunity is literally just vaccine immunity, right? There's no herd immunity to speak of, it's just vaccine immunity. So as a result, I think when the aggressive variants like Delta and Omicron came in, and with the waning vaccine effectiveness especially against Omicron, we're now having a huge wave. The only upside of this whole thing is that we managed to avert the high mortality associated in the, without the vaccine, and the more serious disease that was, apparent without vaccines. So I think we kind of pushed everything to the end. I'm not sure about Hong Kong now, because I think Hong Kong is, because of its aggressive zero tolerance measures, has just kicked the can further down the road, if you understand what I mean. So now they're starting to see a lot of what we experienced maybe 3-4 months ago, because our big waves started maybe in October with Delta, and now we're seeing the last 1 month. You saw half of our cases came in the last 1 month. So I think that's how I explain to my foreign patients about what's happening in Singapore. And I see the same corollary, because we're also a city-state like Hong Kong. I see the same thing happening in Hong Kong. I don't know, was that a good answer?
Yeah, but my question is, why are people ending up reaching the hospital and ICU beds when they're vaccinated? And with this note, I think we have 2 more guests. One of them we were looking for, Dr. Alvin is joining in. So why are, it's a very interesting topic. I think in India, a lot of people who were infected were not vaccinated. So we had a very high mortality rate, and there's a herd immunity by the virus itself. So it's a very, so that's the reason why people are not getting infected now. Vice versa, where you guys had an early vaccination and now they're getting infected after the vaccination. But the question still remains, why? Why do they need the why are the cases getting severe?
Okay, in Singapore, generally, if you look at the first 2,500 cases of Omicron in Singapore, we just had 4 patients that needed oxygen. But it's just the huge numbers. The huge numbers, we're having 20,000 a day for a population of 5 million, that is overwhelming our healthcare system. Even though it's a very mild disease, And we know that Omicron has a vaccine escape, or immune escape against the vaccines, right? As seen by the UK data. If you had 2 shots of Pfizer, by 25 weeks, your vaccine effectiveness of Pfizer against Omicron drops to as low as 10%. And even after a booster, it only increases to 60 to 70% against Omicron, whereas Delta is much better. So Omicron has achieved vaccine escape. But at the same time, Omicron is a milder disease and more infectious. So we're getting huge numbers. We have very high vaccination rates. But at the moment, I think most of the cases are mild. And so because of the boosting and the vaccine coverage. But nevertheless, because the vaccines don't really protect against transmission, right? Getting infected, the vaccines just protect you against severe disease. So it's kind of like a bit of everything that has led to this particular situation. I don't know. I hope I explained it clearly to everyone.
Simply.
Dr. Agarwal, Saurabh. Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Chamal, you're late. So you can speak, you can talk about your question and then you can quickly give a country update. Your and Dr. Alvin is missing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. Actually, I had some other business actually. So now, just only one question, or you can say just information which you can share. I have seen in India there is 10% of the hospitalized patients who are infected with Omicron are dying. And in case of the non-vaccinated or partially vaccinated, it is more than 22%. 22% of the hospitalized patients. So if you compare the hospitalization, number of hospitalization in case of Omicron is higher because the infections are high. So definitely number of infections high, so admission is high. So that is, if you consider about the US situation, that is also much considerable. Most of the US cases are mostly Omicron. It's more than 95% there. So that is also a matter of concern actually. If you think that the people think that yes, there cases are the number of deaths are less in Omicron. It's not like that, I think. So far, I think. And regarding Bangladesh, actually, Bangladesh they have lifted all the restrictions, and only mask is advised only, and everything is normal now. From yesterday, it is, and this is number of cases are now near about 1,500 per day, and in terms of the test, it is 5% positive now. So this is definitely, you are talking about the vaccinations and the herd immunity, something like that. I think it's because of that, because even the restrictions were there in place, but the people are not following it in that way. So it was not so much actually strictly followed by the people, or the government was very much strict about this restrictions. So even then, it has come down. It has been and the number of and the condition of vaccinations, it is more than near about 50% people 50%, not the target group, vaccinated, near about 50% of the people population. So second, I'm fully vaccinated, and first dose is much more. It's near about 70%. So the government is taking a huge program. Actually, it will be this is today actually near about 10 million doses will be administered today, vaccines for the first dose. And the interest of the people is really overwhelming. And the government was not expecting so much response, because government has declared that this will be the last day of the year, first dose initially. So the people, they are rushing to the centers, vaccine centers. Yesterday there was a rush, and today there will be 10 million in a day. This is huge for Bangladesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have Dr. Alvin. Dr. Alvin, we have a question for you. And Dr. Akhtar, would you like to ask this question? Would you like to rephrase your question again?
Yeah, I was just asking that morbidity and mortality, especially maternal death in first wave and second wave, was high. Is there any comparison with any other country? Thank you.
Okay, and also we would like Dr. Alwyn to give an update from Hong Kong. And Dr. Alwyn, we also would like to know what's going on in Hong Kong. Why are the cases rising so high, and why are the beds not available?
All right. First of all, this is Omicron wave, a fifth wave coming to Hong Kong because we had imported cases. Our overall vaccination rate was about now 80%, over 80%. However, different age groups have different vaccination coverage. So for the age group from 20 years old to 70 years old is over 90%. But for those from 70 to 80, it is about only 70%, less than 70%. And for the group of 80 years old above, is only 40%. All right. So this is a very vulnerable group. And another vulnerable group is, of course, those below 11. Now, those from 12 to 20, the vaccination coverage now is about 70%. But then for the 5 to 11 is only about 25% because we had just started the vaccination for this age group. And then for the age group of 3 to 5, we had just begun vaccination for this age group 10 days ago. And however, of course, as usual, parents are more hesitant to give vaccination, especially the mRNA vaccine, to the very young children. They are not sure about any long-term side effects, although, of course, the scientific evidence has shown that it's probably more safe in the children as well. But then we cannot extrapolate to the future. That is, they don't know, will there be any long-term side effects that we don't know about? Then we cannot answer them. But of course, still, many people are now rushing to have the vaccination. But of course, it's quite, it's too late sometimes because it takes at least about 6 weeks to have effect because we need to have the second dose. And then 2 weeks after the second dose, then the immunity will be built up to have defensive effectiveness. So, but still, people are now, those who are not vaccinated, rushing for the vaccination, and especially to bring their children to have vaccination. Because in the fifth wave, first of all, it's an exponential rise. It's a geometrical increase in the case number. So now it's 10,000 cases a day, 10,000 cases a day. And this is only, I guess, is only a fraction of the real numbers because too many people get infected and they would not be able to be tested because first of all, the testing services are overwhelmed. Secondly, even when you tested positive, you don't have that capacity in the A&E and in the hospitals. And when the people are rushing to the hospitals, even they just got positive and asymptomatic, of course, the beds are fully occupied very soon. Because, say, 3 days ago, it's a multiplication of the case number every 3 to 4 days. Every 3 to 4 days, okay? So, say, for example, on the 23rd of January, it's still just 130 cases per day. And then in the 29th is already 600. I mean, it doubled up in 26th of January, and then it further doubled up 3 days later, and then 300, 600, and then 900, and then 1,000, and 800, and then 300 and 3,000, and then 4,000, and then 6,000, and then today is 10,000. And of course, next week we expected it would be about 20,000 because you just expect it. This is Omicron, the transmissibility, and the people were unprepared that it's so transmissible, and including our hospital authority and the health bureau, they were too slow to react. In fact, I still remember on the 22nd of December last year in the radio interview, I had already called upon the government to start rebuilding, to start building the makeshift cabin hospitals and the quarantine facilities. Because if we had the Omicron coming into our community, that will be the things that we expected. So on the 27th of December is the first case of the air crew member of our airline who had, trespassed against the rules given upon them. They just got exempted from the testing and quarantine, and then they get around and traveled around and dined around, meeting many different people in the community. And that started the snowball rolling. And but we had already reminded the government to start preparing because, well, we had heard what had happened in South Africa, what had happened in Europe, in Israel, and then in Singapore. Then why could they think that we could be immune? Of course not. So it's just because of the timing. And then they still provide exemption for the aircrew members, for exemption to be tested and quarantined. Well, of course, there's some part of the tricks of those air crew members because of the airline policy that they allow these air crew members to serve in the domestic airlines. All right, I mean the flights, to serve in the domestic flights in the outgoing flight, but then they allow them to come back in the cargo flight, and they have the exemption for the crew member of the cargo flights because they don't have to meet so many people, they said. And so they got the exemption like this. But in fact, of course, that's cheating because you are outgoing in a domestic flight full of people that could be full of transit flights, well, anyway, that's the loophole. And then Hong Kong still did not have the preparation. Say in the past, say last year, in last December, when we only have 3 or 4 imported cases a day. Then at that time, the policy of the hospitalization is that you must, any patient must have a negative PCR 2 times before you could be discharged. Then you can imagine most of these asymptomatic patients at that time, or very mild symptomatic patients, will have to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month before they could have 2 PCR negative, because the PCR could be positive for 2 or 3 or even a month because they are detecting even the carcass of the skeleton of the dead virus. So anyway, so when the Omicron wave started in early January because of the exempted aircrew members bringing in the virus into the community, we already started to have patients going into the hospital, and yet they still keep this policy of having 2 PCR positive and negative before you can be discharged. So that means the hospitals are all occupied by those positive but asymptomatic mild patients. But then when every day there will be hundreds of patients diagnosed, these patients could not be admitted into the hospital because the beds were occupied. I mean, the infectious ward isolation beds were occupied. So then the people could not be admitted into a hospital when they are positive. So, and then very soon, even the quarantine and isolation facilities outside the hospitals were also fully occupied. They have to be isolated at home. And you can know the consequence. When patients were isolated at home, that is, they will infect all their family members and their neighbors very soon. So then the geometrical multiplication of cases would uh, would would just speed up, and now is the reason why you could see from the newspaper, from the reports that patients were lying in outside the hospital A&E, and they could not get infected, and so on and so on. And adding to our turmoil is that soon after this Omicron started in Hong Kong, we had 3 children consecutively succumbed to Omicron infection because of acute necrotizing encephalitis, which were not so much reported in the world. I think mostly the fatalities and morbidities in children would be MISC, or fulminant pneumonias in those compromised with the immune system compromised. All right, but we just within 1 week, in early February, we have three children aged 3 years to 5 years old, which of course is in the age group that we didn't have vaccination at that time. All right. We started vaccinating 3 to 5 years age group only after the 15th of February. So, which was so unexpected, even from our scholars and infectious disease specialists or pediatricians, that, well, in the past, we knew that influenza or herpes simplex could give rise to acute necrotizing encephalitis, but not so much reported in COVID-19 in children in the past. So this is quite catching us red-handed, and people get panicky, of course. People get panicky. And just 2 days ago, we had another boy, 9 years old, who also died very soon after he got symptoms of fever and then cough. And then it's also when he was admitted into the hospital just before death, he got tested positive. So now I think this is a new scenario to us, that this fatality in children due to perhaps not just the MISC, but something very acute, just 2 days or 3 days after they are diagnosed, they started vomiting and then convulsing, vomiting, and then sending into the ICU with status epilepticus, etc. And then, of course, died very soon. Well, anyway, that's the situation in Hong Kong. So next month, we are going to have a mandatory community testing, PCR testing. And the government had invited the mainland task force to come to Hong Kong to help out because we don't have the manpower to do the mandatory testing for a 7.5 million population. And more importantly, to trace the context of these detected positives. Now you see, today we already have 10,000. And I guess hidden, undetected would be, say, 50,000 at least. Because many people just could not be tested. They don't have the testing. And perhaps they just had the RAT. And yet, officially, the Bureau didn't say yes to the RAT. They were, well, when you line up for admission into the hospital, they only count PCRs. So, but then to have the PCR report now in the community, it takes usually 5 days or more in the government facilities. So people just don't bother to go there. And when you want to dial the hotline, they are just too busy, and you could not get the answer. So we need to have the isolation and quarantine facilities. Again, the mainland task force come to Hong Kong to help us build these makeshift cabin hospitals and quarantine facilities, and aiming at building almost 80,000 beds to be available in 1 month's time. So, you know, our hospital bed all over Hong Kong is only about 30,000. That's that. Altogether, well, for the isolation, only about 2 or 3,000. And then for ICU, of course, even less, much less. And for the pediatric, especially as well. So we are waiting to have these quarantine and isolation facilities to be built, hopefully within the next month. And then more problems could be solved. Right now, of course, the hospital authorities have to think of many different ways, lateral thinking, to convert different beds or different hospitals' beds into isolation beds or to treat COVID-19, and had to suspend all the non-elective, non-acute, non-emergent procedures. So that's the situation in Hong Kong. This tsunami wave is, well, of course, too overwhelming for the medical system in Hong Kong. So thank you very much for your interest. For the pregnant women, we don't have too much experience in fatality or mortality. Mostly, I mean, in the past, Hong Kong well managed. We don't have these morbidity or fatalities in the pregnant women. And now we are also vaccinating pregnant women as well. But previously, of course, we have two vaccines that we are using. One is the Sinovac, a killed virus vaccine from mainland. And it's said that it should not be given to pregnant women, all right, previously. Now they relaxed and removed this from the contraindication. So we are now also giving vaccine to the pregnant women, and well, for BioNTech is another story. Many people are quite still suspicious, and anti-vax people will always condemn us using these new technologies in pregnant women and breastfeeding women and also young children. So that's why even now, when we had promoted vaccinations into 3 to 5 years age group, there are still a lot of resistance. It's not easy to drive up the vaccination coverage in this age group. And and then we have the youngest succumbed patient is 11 months old. And that baby also died from acute necrotizing encephalitis. So it's very sad. But then that's what happened in Hong Kong. So if you have, I hope I won't make you too upset. Very upset.
Dr. Alvin,
Yes.
when mainland China was able to contain it very nicely, why you were following the stringent procedures protocols from the very beginning, and that's why you were escaped. But now, why you think that in Omicron wave you have been so much attacked and so much here?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you. In fact, first of all, Hong Kong and mainland China, we were governed with one country and two systems. We had a totally different system from mainland China. Okay, we are a part of China, but we are governed in a free way, and so it's very difficult in Hong Kong to do anything mandatory. No such thing as mandatory in the past. All right. So it's quite different. So you have a free will to have vaccination or not. You have a free will to do this or do that. And then, so that's why we don't have the power or, we will have a lot of opposition if we have a complete lockdown. In mainland China, even for a 10 million city like Xi'an and just recently they have a total city lockdown. They could do that. All 11 million people would be kept at home, not going out. All 11 million people would be delivered all their necessary meals, medicine, all necessary commodities. All right. That's how they could do it because China has the power and the system to do it. But in Hong Kong, we have 7.5 million, and we just find it very difficult to have a total city lockdown. So even in the coming mandatory universal testing, the government could not afford to say that there would be a lockdown in Hong Kong, a total city lockdown, because we just don't have the manpower to do all the things. Say, just imagine we have we have 7.5 million in a city, and then you have to deliver food, medicine, everything within that week or two, and it's not feasible in Hong Kong. So, of course, the first example is Wuhan. Wuhan in 2020, right? They had successfully controlled the pandemic beginning in Wuhan, and they had the total city complete lockdown. And so it's very successful. But even in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Guangzhou, in Shenzhen, these are cities over 20 million. They had never been locked down before. So I doubt they could have the lockdown in these super metropolitan cities. I don't know. So in Hong Kong, it's difficult. If you cannot lock down, so there would be spread like this with through the families, through dining, through gathering, etc. So anyway, I hope I have answered your question. So I have to leave now because I still have patients lining up for vaccinations and consultation because I'm still working on this Saturday morning and afternoon in this unusual days, of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. Dr. Chong, look at the time, and I think, like, how can we end the sessions early?
Saurabh, can I ask a single question? If you have, allow me, if time is allowed.
Yeah, okay.
Next time.
Quickly.
No problem. Next time.
The question can be small, the shorter one, and the answer has to be
Very
also
small.
shorter one.
It's very small. Why the Hong Kong and the other countries where even I just heard that the New Zealand is going the number of cases high, and they are planning to close down the daycare schools or whatever it is. So my question is, why even after having a big number of vaccinated people, why they have this type of situation now? The simple, it can be answered by the Monica or anybody.
I think this question was just been answered by Dr. Chong. We did ask this question, so I can send you
I'm
the
sorry.
video link.
I'm sorry. I missed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll send you the video link. I think Dr. Chong has probably spent 10 minutes on this question. It was exactly the same question which was being asked. I will send you the link, and you probably can just rewind the video by I think 35 minutes, and that will be there. Dr. Chong will be answering that question. So with this note, I think we would like to close this session. And Dr. Chong, would you like to close the session with your remarks? And you have to unmute your virus.
Thank you very much for joining us as always, and we look forward to next week's 100th centenary session together. And please send us a link early so I can send it to all my people in Singapore, all my doctors in Singapore to attend. And we all look forward to next week's session, which will be the big milestone. And you know, our sad thoughts go out to the people of Hong Kong. I think they're struggling quite a bit there. So you know, thank you very much again, and we'll all see each other next week.
Topic should be a very special one for 100.
Yes.
So topic and the speaker, both are the special ones. We have Dr. Monica addressing that 100th topic as Dr. KK Agarwal. This is a very special session for us. And I would like you all to forward this thing to all the medical associations and all the doctors. And it's my request, let's at least cross 100 attendees, 100 into 100. So I would like Japan.
Taiwan as the president should, of course, they should come. Taiwan medical.
So Dr. Chong, if you can invite them.
Yes.
If you can invite them, if you can invite all other, let's cross 100 for this attendance. And this only should be doctors.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Great, take care, bye.
Have a nice time.